might not be the best person to give financial advice, but my kids are getting to an age where I want them to know some things about money. I'm not a money guru or anything like that. I've had some big ups and some big downs with money in the course of my lifetime, and you learn some things. So I want my kids to know a few of the things that I learned, and here's what I want them to know. First thing is, there's only two sides to the equation of your personal wealth. There's income and expenses. So when you want to improve your situation, there's only two sides of the equation to work with. You either work with the income or you work with the expenses. When you work with your expenses, you're a little bit limited with what you can do. So if your expenses are $5,000 a month, the total amount that you can improve your financial situation by is $5,000 a month. That's if you take your expenses right to zero, which ain't going to happen anyways. On the other hand, if you work with the income side of the equation, how much can you improve your financial situation by? It's unlimited. There's no ceiling on how much you can make. You can make as much as you want to. The only thing that's stopping you from making more money is the belief that you can't make more money. So that's a belief, not an actual limitation. The limitation on the expense side of the equation is when you hit zero. That's a limitation. There's no such limitation on the other side of the equation. So I'm not saying don't look at your expenses. If you're trying to improve your financial situation, have a look at your expenses, but then have a bigger look at your income. That's the side that's really going to move the needle for you. Okay, second thing, there's only three ways to spend money. You can spend money on consumables, or you can spend money on liabilities, or you can spend money on assets. So once you get the income and the expenses thing sorted out so that you have more income than you have expenses, then you might start to save some of that money and you might want to do something with it. Here's where your money is going. Consumables. Consumables are things that you spend money for and you use the thing that you bought and then it's gone. Then you have to spend more money. If you drink bottled water, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go buy a bottle of water, you drink it, it's gone. If you put gas in your car, it's a consumable. If you buy food, it's a consumable. So there's a lot of different kinds of consumables that you're going to purchase in your lifetime. Some of them are necessary, and it's just important to know which ones are necessary and which ones aren't. The next thing that you can spend your money on is liabilities. Liabilities are things that are going to cost you money over time. One of the most popular examples of a liability for a consumer would be to buy a car. So when you buy a car, you have to put gas in it all the time. You have to put insurance on it. You have to put tires on it. All these things are things that you spend money on, and then after a while, they're gone. Tires wear out, gas gets used, um, there's maintenance on a car, there's all these things. And so it's just important to know how much all that stuff is. A liability is something that doesn't make you money. Okay, so that's the difference between an asset and a liability. So that's the last thing. An asset is something that makes you money over time. And uh, the technical definition of asset is just something that's worth something, like having something that is worth something. But I want to simplify this definition for my kids so that they just understand every time they take their wallet out, they're either buying a consumable, a liability, or an asset. And so they can understand how it all works. So, an asset, an example of an asset is investment real estate. And the reason why it's an asset is because it makes money over time. When you collect rent, you have more than enough money to pay the mortgage, pay the property taxes, pay the maintenance and repairs, pay the management, any expenses that are connected to that piece of real estate are covered by the income. And you'll notice that some of the things that I said there are consumables. Property tax are consumables. So it's not inherently bad to have consumables connected to an asset. In fact, most assets do have consumables connected to them, but they also have income that more than covers those consumables. That's what makes it an asset. A liability has consumables attached to it and no income or not enough to cover it. So that's what makes it a liability. So using those definitions, that means that the home that you live in is not an asset. We live in unprecedented times right now where it's harder than ever for young people to buy a home. And many millennials and Gen Zs have actually kind of adopted the idea that they might never own a home. But I would encourage people in that age group to consider saving up to put money into an investment property instead. And it's not a bad thing to rent the home that you own and to own an investment property that you rent to someone else. That's really not a bad thing. That means that you own an asset. And if you save up that money and use it to buy a home that you live in, there's no income from that. So this is what I would tell my kids. You want to be aware of what you're spending your money on, yes, but you also want to spend more energy on increasing your income. And the other thing I want my kids to know is to work towards getting some assets into your life, more assets than liabilities. You're going to find throughout your life that you have some liabilities that are worth something to you. That's why you have them. My daughter wants to have a car, and a car is a liability for her. There's tires and there's gas and there's all these things that are gonna, and it's the car has to be fixed and there's all these things. But it doesn't matter to her because to her, car equals freedom. So that's worthwhile to her to spend that money. But all I want to tell my kids is that just to be aware when you buy that car, it is a liability. And if you can save up your money to buy a liability, you can save up your money to buy an asset too. So that's the simplified for my kids money model. Consumables, liabilities, and assets.